Hey guys, it's John. In this video, I want to break down some things you can do to influence more people to inquire into your service. This is typically turning viewers into leads off the back of your organic content, because I know that's a big bottleneck for a lot of coaches. What do I do to get people to message me? What do I do to encourage more people to fill up my inquiry form? Because I post regularly, but not many people fill out that form. So we're going to cover 5 key strategies that you can use today to influence this directly and encourage more people to talk about what you do or take that next step. And I know exactly how you feel because I've gone through this with my business and my clients Shane and Lloyd, they're living examples of this. Strategy 5 and strategy 3 are key things they did to directly encourage people to inquire with their business. And for Shane, he 9x his income. For Lloyd, he 7x his income. And now Lloyd consistently works with over 100 clients. So let's get into it. The first thing you could do is bloody well ask. This is a wonderful illustration. It illustrates you opening the door because guess what? Most people are terrible at taking action. We are awful. We just want to get about our lives, maintain the status quo because that's where the comfort zone is. So very few people are proactively going to invite or take the opportunity to come through of their own accord. You know, some will, but the most won't. So how are you going to do this? How are you going to ask? Well, this is typically call to actions, but I want you to think of it differently. I want you to think about this as in terms of inviting them to take the next step or just telling them what the next step is. Because again, not many people, when they're on socials, are proactively thinking of making a change and making things positives. But you can influence that by explaining first thing, posting about it. So these are feed posts. You could do carousel posts, you could do speaking posts, you could do written posts. We're going to break down things you can cover in the next strategy. But with this, typically you want to align it with payment cycles. If you think about when people get paid, it's either the 20th, the last Friday, or the last day of the month. So week 4, this is when you want to post a call to action, or maybe week 1, when people have a bit more affordability, they've probably got some cash in the pocket, so they're more directly influenced on, right, they want to take some action. Plus, the human psychology of starting something when there's a new cycle, it is real. Hence New Year's resolutions, hence beginning of the month. So it's not a bad time to post something like this. So posting it on your feed, explaining what happens. You can also do little snippets as well. So that's basically 10-second clips you can bolt onto the end of reels. You could also put them on stories. And this is very simple because in essence, what I recommend here is breaking down the process. You're not asking people to inquire. You're not asking people to pay. All you're doing is inviting them to consider finding out more of what they could expect inside of service. And that's it. So you're not, when you do a call to action, when you're inviting people to inquire, you're just inviting them to fill out the form to find out the results they could expect and to find out a little bit more of what's inside of the process. You're trying to break that big leap down to a micro chain of events, which is basically all these little links here. We're kind of coming through. What we want to do is break it down to little stages. And if you shorten the action threshold, people are a lot more likely to take that step because it's not as daunting. It's not as big of a commitment. And that's a huge thing I see. And by the way, if you look at your bio, if you put apply now, apply, people probably think they're going to pay. Where, again, they don't want to pay if they don't know what they're going to get. So inquire or find out more or learn more. There's a reason why learn more significantly outperforms buy or subscribe when you're doing paid ads. It's just breaking down things into a micro chain of events. So that's what this illustrates. So if you're doing a snippet and you're going to bolt that on, imagine something like this. So real quick, if you found that helpful, I do this every single day with my one-to-one clients. If you want to find out the results you can expect and the exact stages of how we get there, fill out my form, head to my bio, fill out the form, and I'll be in touch with the details in a bit. So something like that where you can bolt it on can make a lot of sense. And then the other thing then to consider, lastly, when you were talking about inviting people is, well, you can pivot. So the top 3% of the market, these guys are ready to buy. So again, very small percentage, 1 out of 20, well under 1 out of 20, you're kind of appealing to with these direct call to action posts where it's about your service. However, 17% underneath that are actively researching. So basically that increases your chances of making a connection with someone. So if you have a free resource, if you have a quiz, if you have anything you can give out for free or potentially low ticket, you can alternate these call to action. So it doesn't always have to be about people signing up. It's about inviting them to make a decision to do something different or to take the next step in their own journey. And that doesn't always have to be paid. So you could alternate the different offers or what you're proposing or what you're opening the door to. It doesn't always have to be a paid service. And then that way, people are going to start to form a relationship with you. They're going to start to take some form of action. And then guess what? You can follow up, you can help them more. Because most people, it's just that first hurdle of inertia, breaking them into some form of action. Once they're kind of finding out a little bit more about it and they're kind of up and running, they will naturally start to assign more value into that and they probably want to kind of progress more. But the biggest hurdle is just getting them through that first point. The second thing you've got to consider is awareness. And this was a massive, massive thing for Lloyd and Shane, but mainly Lloyd, because what you'll find is most people aren't aware of the problems they have, the solutions they have, the service, and how much they could get working with you, and the fact that it probably funds itself. We're going to break that down right now, because awareness is your biggest hurdle without a shadow of a doubt. It's nothing to do with lack of interest. It's this process of awareness, because the first part of awareness is the problem. Are they aware they have a problem? If they don't think they have a problem, they don't need to change, so they're not in the market, so to speak. So do they have a problem? Do they know what the problem is? Do they know what's holding them back? Are they aware of the solution then to that problem? Have they kind of identified, well, I know I need to fix something. If they think running is the answer to lose weight, then they're clearly mistaken, because it massively increases hunger. Burning calories is a terrible idea with exercise. It's about, managing and manipulating diet. So if they're problem aware, are they solution aware? And then are they service aware? That's the next thing. What does your option look like in terms of that solution? How do you fit into place? And then lastly, are they results aware? Do they know the results they could expect if they were working with you? That can be done through sharing stories about your clients. It could be you in conversation with someone, which we're going to break into. But you've got to appreciate there's different stages of awareness. It's not just like they'll find you, they'll see you, and bang, done. So you can break this down with different content. You can break it down. But how you make people aware? Well, there's actually 5 specific things you can do when you actually reference your service, because your content should do the majority of this. Your results post should do the majority of this and this. This specifically is where people screw up, because they just don't articulate the service. People think coaching could be burpees and a PDF, which is basically painful and unnecessary and not useful. That's a terrible way to build a business, because if you leave someone else to describe the value of what you have to offer, it's a bad policy. So what we can do is we can change that. You can influence that. So what do? Well, the first thing is, what is it? What is coaching? Describe it on stories, on content, on feed posts, on Mondays. Really good day to do this. But in stories as well, talk about the elements of what you do. A lot of people, Kelsopriest, they don't actually know what coaching means. They think it's a plan. Coaching isn't a plan. Coaching is someone with expertise measuring someone's response to a plan and helping people action and listen to the behavior patterns, which are deep-rooted and psychological, and breaking down belief systems and behavior patterns to remove self-sabotage to get someone to where they want to be. That is the art of coaching. It's not a plan. So again, when you explain like that and you articulate it, people will naturally start to value it more. People think, do you know what, I could need that. But guess what? No one's going to practically think that. So it's up to you to do that. So firstly, what is coaching? Second thing is, well, why should they give a toss? Why should they care? Or what will it do for me? And again, if you know your avatar, if you know who you're targeting, you know your market, you should be able to nail that with precision. Why should I care? Or what will your service do for me? Explain it through a client story. Explain it to me if you're speaking on camera. Talk to me. Label it, and then don't be afraid that it's going to get no views, because guess what? This sort of stuff is not applicable for many people. It's going to get no views, but for the people who do view it, who do need it, it can tip them over the edge. So, it's not always about engagement. So why? Then, proof it works. This is basically going towards results. So proof it works, pretty self-explanatory. Then what's included, What do we get? What are the elements? What are the features? What are the benefits of those features? How does it make a material difference? How does it adapt to my lifestyle? Are you making me live off chicken, rice and broccoli? Am I going to have to eat 6 meals a day? Am I going to have to live out of Tupperware? Am I going to go to a wedding with a Tupperware of fish and be the most unpopular person in the world? No. So explaining what the details are, the features, the benefits, and then mapping those to the situation that most of your market go through wouldn't be a bad idea. So that's it. And then lastly, how do I get it? What's next, or what's the next stage? And again, that's similar to the previous slide where we talked about inviting people to take the next step. And that's literally okay, go here. Now, if you're this person, you want what they have, go here, fill out the form. What happens after you do that, I will come back to you. We will have a conversation. I'll talk through in more detail, and you're going to know a bit more of an expectation of the results you'd expect, and you're going to know the details of what's required. And you find out, guess what, that most people can actually probably self-fund it because of the lifestyle habits and the changes and some of the savings you're going to make throughout the process anyway, because allocation changes when behavior changes. And that's the biggest thing. People don't realize that this is a self-funding project, basically, once the behavior shifts to be the person they want to be. So That's a big thing, awareness. You've got to appreciate it's not just like being seen, it's breaking down this again into a micro chain of events and going through the process. And if you cover these 5 points, the what, the why, the proof it works, what's included, and what to do next, and how they can find out more details, you'll be surprised how much of an influence that does. With Shane, this is a guy who had 24 clients and grew to 109 clients in the space of 12 weeks. Obviously, his income skyrocketed, but a huge principle was there are a lot of people watching off his stories which weren't getting this information. And we also leveraged the 5th strategy, which massively increased the amount of inbound dialogue. So a combination of people being pre-framed in this light and getting into those conversations naturally, authentically, it led to a lot more awareness, a lot more people finding out more, and yeah, made a huge difference. An extra bonus thing you can do to accelerate this is collaborate, because my God, this strategy works well. Again, huge with Lloyd, because Lloyd doesn't send a single outbound DM. He hasn't done it in 3 years, so no DMs, no outreach, all inbound, and it's leveraging proximity, because this illustrates a referral market or referral network. Now, we talked about call to action posts. You can put those up, but the results post specifically, if you can collaborate with your clients and get in front of their audiences, there's 2 really powerful things happen. First thing is the pain increases. And why does this happen? Because, well, the followers of this person, when they see this result, 2 things happen. The first thing is they compare themselves. And because they know the person, the pain of comparison is greater. Remember I said earlier that most people don't take action. We're awful. We just maintain the status quo. Well, this will directly encourage people to do something about it, because if we feel like we're being overtaken, we want to take action. There's only one worse thing than sitting in a traffic jam, is picking the lane which is the slowest, because it's that comparison. It's the same psychology. Human beings, we anchor our hierarchy or we anchor our value based on our social structure. So that happens when someone in their audience sees someone else succeeding and they feel overtaken. So the pain increases, the willingness to take action increases. But the other thing that increases, well, it's trust and believability, because they know the person that's got the result. They look at that and go, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I know Sheila. I know how many biscuits that lady can put away. She is an animal at eating McVitie's. So if she can do that, mate, I can do that. I'm going to get involved. And then what do? Well, they see the person at the top of that collaboration post and they come straight to you. Lovely little arrow. They come straight into you because you're the person that did that for them. You have the trust. There's proof it works on someone they know. They feel overtaken. They want to fix that, but they believe they can get the result because they know the person that's got the result. So trust and believability go up, pain goes up. That drives people to inquire. You can systematically do this if you get organized, where once a week you can mine other people's followings, collaborate as much as you can. You leverage this psychology, and that directly influences a lot more urgent inbound dialogue, inbound conversations. And you can have, people can come through many different ways. They can come through literally inquiring, if you have your format and your bio set up the right way to leverage that. You can get people following you. Then if you reach out and kind of connect with those people, you've got people liking the post as well. Anyone you don't recognize, you can reach out, make the first move, do it authentically. Don't try and process and push people, but just make that connection. You'll find that there's a bigger audience out there where there is interest, there is curiosity, there is some level of awareness, which you do broach into that. So yeah, leverage the psychology, leverage collaborations, and also leverage local network. It's where the trust is, so it makes the most sense. So proximity and awareness are big things. Now, the next strategy is looking at personality types, because this is quite interesting. I learned this off a guy called Jim Francis. He used to work with Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn. He ran several businesses throughout his life. He's 71 now, I think. But yeah, he's one of his first companies he took to 108 million. So very, very well vetted guy, hangs around the right people, obviously conditioned his mind in the right way. And this is basic personality. You've probably seen loads of different ones. There's the DISC model. There's a book right now called Surrounded by Idiots, very, very popular. We have different colors, but this illustrates something similar. You have the different suits, basically. And you've got to understand there's 4 base personality types, and you will probably only speak in your own language. So you will only speak according to your personality, which means you have the opportunity to pivot to attract 75% more people if you know what other people value. So this is all about influencing people. It's about mastering your skill to speak in the language and speak in words that align with what people want. It sounds so obvious, but people value different things. So understanding what they value and repeating it to them and putting it into your content, putting it into the captions, putting it into the copy, putting it into the landing page, putting it into specific questions in the inquiry form. All of this can encourage more people to inquire if you know what people value. So that's what we're going to do right now. Now, you've got the base personality types. Now, on the right-hand side, These people, these are typically extrovert, you know. These are the people that are a bit more outspoken, a bit more outgoing, a bit more driven, but they typically want to hang out with people a little bit more and they want to drive. These people on the left are typically a little bit more introverted, and then these people, they make decisions on their own. These people make decisions with others. So it's the different base personalities where further to the right, you get people a little bit more out there, less shy. People left a little bit more shy, a little bit more internal. And then the people at the top, a little bit more independent thinking. People at the bottom, they're inclusive of other people. Now, the key to this is understanding people value different things. So the 4 basic personality types, they're influenced and they will be encouraged to inquire or encouraged to take action based on different principles. The spades, they value winning above all else. They're very competitive, they're very internal, they're very driven people. And if they feel like they're going to get ahead, be competitive, beat the competition, save time, look at the offer, or if the offer resonates with them, they're going to go for it. They don't worry about proof. They don't worry about any validation. They don't need other people's opinions to confirm what they want. They go after what they want. They're very quick to take action if it's sound. So these guys really respond to like your offer and your positioning. That's like the main thing that's going to directly influence them. The diamonds, these guys all about fun. You know, they're fun and they're also about being unique. So if the experience looks good, this is about you as a person a little bit more. They'll resonate with a little bit more like you. As the coach, if they're going to get on with you, if it looks good, if you show other people having fun, if you show your clients going through the process and the experience is going to challenge them, but also it's going to make them stand out for whatever reason, that's going to resonate really well with the fun. That's going to resonate really well with the diamond. And then you've got clubs. Clubs, these guys value being right. They love being right. They love being informed. They like making the right decision. They're very, very, very slow to make decisions. They need proof. They need results. So these guys, all about the proof. A lot of FAQs, they'll ask you probably 1,000,001 questions before they sign up. But once they signed up and they feel confident that they're probably going to be very set in the ways, very stuck with you, and they're probably going to refer you if it feels like it's the right thing. So when you're talking about, when you're putting this in content, putting it in headlines, making it look like the logical decision, the smart decision, and the most informed decision, or it's what science is suggesting, or it's what social proof suggests, they're among the people who are seem the most wise. That really rubs them up the right way. If rubbing, as you can definitely get rubbed up the right way, can't you, if you put it like that. And then lastly, you've got the hearts. These guys are all about being liked. They crave being liked, they crave affirmation, they're looking for support. So this personality type, they will probably look at you as the coach. They're going to resonate with you. If they resonate with you and they feel like you've got their back, they will sign up with you. They'll be very loyal, but these people, anything they can do to increase their likability, to increase their desirability, and to make other people value them a little bit more, and anyone who can offer them that extra level of support, that's going to really resonate with them. So the premise with this is you've got to understand what your personality type is from what the basis of this is. You can do your own research, but you will only speak in your own language normally. So understanding the other personality types, knowing what influences them, and doing that on content, doing that on stories, doing it on the questions on your inquiry form, it can directly influence more people to inquire. Then we look at story strategy. So stories, obviously, really, really important because we're conditioned to understand stories. And right now, with AI coming forwards and people trusting results less and less and less, it's what people are buying into. They want to see the process. They're not just caring about the result anymore. They want to see what's behind the result. They want to see the journey because, again, they can resonate with it. And when they resonate with it and they're drawn to it, they instinctively like you, they instinctively choose you, and you become a market of one if you can tell stories to the right person the right way. So this wonderful acronym, HAPIKURUKURU, which definitely isn't how I pronounced it, but this illustrates how to write a story. So firstly, you got the hook. This is typically the cliffhanger moment, the biggest contrast from so-and-so to this, from X to Y. You know, this is really about breaking down what is the biggest contrast you can, or what's the biggest hook. Or it could just simply something simple as like, meet Dave. From absolutely clueless and stuck in his ways to losing X pounds or losing 20 stone, whatever. And then you've got, okay, next thing is the problem. This is just labeling the common behaviors you probably much see. So when Dave came to you, what does he struggle with? Again, what was the necessity to change? What was he doing? And again, if you're good with avatar understanding and you know your target market, this is where you want to talk about, okay, look, I know a lot of people, they do 3 sets of 8 to 12. You know, and they're not in linear progression, they're not building muscle. So with this, it's like, okay, cool. Label those common behaviors. If you know that's a big problem you disagree with, you could just label it and just say, this is something that he was doing. And he wasn't getting progress, and he wasn't making changes, and he wasn't seeing any movement in the gym. So, yeah, we had to change that. That's the obvious thing. And realistically, he didn't make progress in the last 6 months, and he knew that he needed to seek someone else's advice. And then the C, this is basically the consequence. So the importance of this is, okay, most people don't think long term. They're probably living week by week, day to day. What happens if this problem develops? What happens if you add time to this problem? And this is really important because most people will think that if they don't do anything, they maintain them where they are. But that's not true, because if their goal's over here and you're on a train track getting advice in the right direction, if they think they stay put, they don't. They're actually on a train track going further away. And it's just making people aware that if you do nothing, you will continue to go further away, because the current trajectory, you're not getting any closer, you're slowly drifting. So it's making people aware that they are making movement further away from where they want to be. So labeling the consequence of, and this could be why he needed to change. This could be the specifics of that. This is very simple. This is the physical response that you did. So with this, what did you do? What did you advise? What needs to change? If you have a system with, there's a way you describe your service, you have a process, this is where you lay that down. This is the result, mainly the physical result. So what happened? You know, what was the difference? What was the take-home message? What was the outcome of the process? And then this is the important bit. This is the impact of the result, the emotional impact, the overspill. How did it make a difference in their life, basically? So what was the impact? And then you can do the invite. Again, invite people to take the next step. But that is a basic premise for stories of how do you take someone's information and turn that into a story which you can put over a carousel post. One of these per slide, or one focal point per slide, or it can form the basis of a script. And this is what you take people through. You start off with a bit of a cliffhanger, and then you go through the motions so people feel like they're on board, alongside, and people are going through these points. And it's just a natural way to build storytelling into your content strategy, because this is going to start to build more trust. It's going to draw more people to you, and it's going to get more people believing that they can get the result as well. If you show the problem, if you show the consequence, and again, the consequence could be a direct component with driving action, because most people don't think about it. And you can touch on the pain point, but also you can give them belief it's solved by giving the proof straight after. So sometimes it's necessary to kind of go to this point to again drive them to take action, and then give them the urgency and the faith and the excitement that it can be overcome. So storytelling, massively important. And the majority of results posts now, you're trying to incorporate this into some form of carousel, or if you're doing a case study and you're breaking down results, it's a really good thing to hear the context, because a lot of people, they look at a picture, they look at a result, and they don't understand it, or they don't resonate with it. But if you label the reality of their problem, and you reference the trajectory they could get to if they don't solve it, and then you talk about how it's changed for someone else, these are things that they're going to start to make them a little bit more solution aware, make them service aware, it makes them results aware. So again, when we look at that micro chain of awareness, this directly influences people through that micro chain of events. And you can see how more impactful that is versus just a before and after picture where there's no context. Another thing, expanding on stories in a different sense, your Instagram stories. This was massive for Shane, because actually, Shane, he went from 24 to 109 clients. And the vast majority of this was Instagram stories, because so many people were watching but taking no action. They weren't making the first move. Where we put a bit of invite out there, we provided more connection points off his stories. He proactively messaged people off his stories as well, because that was the most interested part of his market. And off the back of that, he found out there was loads of people waiting for his next 12-week shred, which we ultimately abandoned, because 12 weeks is a terrible idea, or a terrible thing to push off the messaging of your content, because it sets a precedent. We changed his service structure, got people into monthly rolling or 8-week up front, and that made a huge difference. It was a huge difference because not only people joined, but we could build and compound where we weren't fighting churn on the way up to 109 clients. So it was really critical. But specifically the strategy and stories, the thing you need to think about is basically being a human, not a coach. And this is where, if you look at story strategy, or the ratio of stories and social content, 70% of your stories should be casual. 30% could be about what you do. What I mean by this is sharing stuff that interests you, your opinions, anything that entertains you, anything that makes you nostalgic. It's just who you are as a person, because if you're multi-dimensional, you're more trustworthy because you're human. And that's literally it. I can't really over explain this, but if all you talk about is coaching and all you do is hide behind your service, something I used to do heavily because I was a bit introverted, didn't want to share myself online, people just look at you as someone who's selling, Or they kind of get that subconscious, like all he talks about is that. Whereas, if I share stuff about what I'm into, massive nerd, Warhammer, StarCraft, gaming, training, Pokemon randomly, 90s nostalgia because I grew up there, the TV shows I watch, the movies I watch, what I find funny, my sense of humor, memes I find funny, White Monster Life, it's all that sort of stuff, because if you share that, what entertains you, you're going to naturally draw people in who have the same interests, the same opinions, have the same affinities. So you just present an easy opportunity for people to connect with you. Because again, we're going to go through this interest level. If all you talk about is service and the call to action is about that, you're only talking to the top 3%. So it makes sense to share more human stuff, because that appeals to the base level of the market, the 60% of people who are problem unaware. And again, it's just casual stuff. So you're directly going to influence people's ease to connect with you if they're going to look at your stories. And that is a huge thing. Plus, you're going to obviously resonate with people above that as well, because it's not just the people who are problem unaware, it's the people who are problem aware, actively researching, and wanting to buy. All of those people resonate with just the casual stuff. So it's just doing that to kind of be a human being. Again, increasing the trust, but increasing the opportunity for people to connect with you. So that directly influenced more people to come through and message Shane. So that will increase the volume of people coming through. And that's a huge bottleneck. It's not really you have a problem where someone's interested and you can screw that up. If you've got loads of people interested in your service, I think you can take them to a call. I think most people can. But if you have no one of interest coming through, it's really hard to do anything. So this directly encourages the volume of people coming in from stranger to high, or stranger to some form of nurturing. And then the more people nurture and the more information they consume and the more connection they have with you, the more, or the further along that micro chain of awareness they go. So it's just a massive thing. And a huge, huge other thing, I put it on the first slide, 1 out of 20 people will message you and reach out. The vast majority won't. So make the first move. Who is watching your stories? That will tell you who's the most engaged or the most aware of who you are as a person. Go on their stories. Anyone who's watching your stories, anyone who's inquiring, anyone who is recently followed you, anyone who's engaging, what have they got going on in their lives? People's favorite topic is themselves. So if you can reach out to them and talk to them, that could be the most authentic message or the comment. I typically lean on story reactions or comments. Don't go straight into messaging, because it normally goes into a request folder. Plus, it's a bit forward. Whereas if you have something genuine to say, and this is basically what authenticity means, if you can look at the content, the story, and if you know what to say within the first 5 seconds, that's authentic. If you have to struggle and come up with things to say and it takes more than 10 seconds, that's trying too hard and that's inauthentic. That's you trying to do it for the sake of doing it. Don't bother. Don't bother. Like, there's so many different opportunities you can do that. Stories happen, other posts come up. Anything you can generally connect with and it's worthwhile saying, if it improves and brightens their day, you say it. So that's a big thing behind Shane's success. It was just changing and switching up the ratio of what type of content he shared in stories and practically reaching out, and started a bit of a snowball. And then, we found soon enough loads of people interested when they become aware of what the service could do and the ultimate result you could get for them. So it's a huge, huge factor for driving more leads into the business. With that being said, these are just a few ideas. I cover this heavily inside my community. Everything in there is designed to help you create more inbound dialogue, attract more people coming into your business that match your service. Those people are going to stay longer, but also not just stay, get better results and refer their friends. Because someone else's word of mouth is worth so much more than your own if you're trying to push your service. So everything in that community and my whole approach is designed to attract the right people, keep them for longer, and use their results and their network and relationships to get more clients back into the front end. Links below, free trial, give it a go. But I hope that helps. It really is about doing what you can to encourage more inbound dialogue, because I know that's the biggest bottleneck. If you want leads coming into your business, it's awareness. And a lot of that, because the vast majority of people don't take any form of action or don't practically message, it's putting up the content and being a little bit proactive with what you put out to drive more people to kind of come inbound and just have conversations. It's breaking it down to a micro chain of events. And when you do that, you get more dialogue, you get more awareness, and then you get more people who are at that point where they're interested. And when they're interested, that's what you can then do to then present them with goals, struggles, expectations, results, and then go into a call. So this is all designed to get more people to that point where there's some form of interest and they have some level of awareness of the results they can expect working with you. Now, with that being said, if you can't get people from interest into a call, or if you're struggling with getting people into that conversation where it talks about service and you're having the business end of a conversation where people know what they're going to get and they want to sign up either through DMs or through calls, then no matter what you do, it's still going to be a problem. And that's specifically what I'm going to focus on in the next video. It's what can you do to take some form of interest, whether it's a vague lead, a lead magnet response, or some level of engagement off inbound dialogue, and how are you going to turn that into a conversation about calls and get a call booked, or just get people to sign up straight away in the DMs. Again, with some of my other clients like Marcus, he's getting people to sign up for 6 months upfront without having to take a call. So it really comes down to once the trust is established and people are conditioned in the right way and you remove all the objections, they will pay, they will sign up. But there's obviously stages that you need to go through to overcome any of the issues and overcome any hurdles that person might have. So see you in the next one.